The video assignment is a brand new assignment that I've never tried before. So, this first semester, we're all going to try to work out the kinks together to make sure that everything goes just fine with this particular assignment. This assignment is for you to pull up the information. All you need to do is just click right here for the video assignment, and of course, it will download and then you can pull it up. I already have it pulled up. But for this assignment, you can see at the top the competencies that will be met for this particular assignment. And here's what I'm tasking you to do. At some point in time, we have all been on the computer watching the news, out in public somewhere, and all of a sudden there's a reference made to Kentucky or Kentuckians. Unfortunately, most of these references are not always really positive. Many of them tend to be negative. Many of them tend to reinforce Kentucky stereotypes. Many of them, in a lot of ways, try to reinforce what's sometimes known as the hillbilly image, the Kentucky hillbilly image. So, what I'm wanting you to do is I give you a list of 10 areas, and you have to find 5 references from those 10. Okay? So, 4 of them should be negative because that's pretty much how it is. 1 should be positive. I want you to really try to find one positive reference of Kentucky and Kentuckians in one of these 10 categories. And then the other 4, as I said, you'll find it's a piece of cake to find negative stuff out there on Kentucky. Please note that all your instances cannot come from one category. So 5 of the 10 areas must be present. In other words, you could use numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your items to come from. The 10 areas that you have to choose from are Kentucky sports. I don't want 10 references to Kentucky sports, especially Kentucky basketball. So you can only use one thing that deals specifically with Kentucky sports. You can, Kentucky in the news. Maybe there is a national story about something that has happened in Kentucky. For example, a couple years ago on I-75, right off I-75, there was a Chinese restaurant that got caught willing a dead deer into the restaurant, into the kitchen. And there was a headline about roadkill in Kentucky restaurant. So that would be Kentucky in the news. Number 3, a Hollywood movie. This could be a movie such as Coal Miner's Daughter, The Doll Maker. It could be references to Kentucky and Kentuckians in any movie. There's one, for example, like in the movie Bring It On, that I've had students discuss before in the past. Commercials, YouTube or reality TV. Pretty well self-explanatory there. Turtle Man. Turtle Man is almost a category of his own. Print media, and of course online could account as well. Now there could be potentially some overlapping between number 2 and number 7, using the story that I gave you as an example a while ago. Kentucky events such as the Hillbilly Days. Music, which sometimes people think of in terms of bluegrass, and then some other kind of area that maybe you find something really interesting that you want to write about. So, say this again, you have to have 5 references to Kentucky. Each of those 5 has to come from a different category of those 10. If you have any questions about where your categories would where your events would come from, or where your references would come from, just ask and I'll be more than glad to help you out. Now, in terms of writing this, your paper should be about 2 pages. You should have an introduction and a conclusion. And in your conclusion, you should have an overall summary of your findings. Are you surprised by what you found? Are you embarrassed by what you found? Another example that I use a lot of times in my face-to-face class is about 10 or 12 years ago, a friend of mine that worked for a small town newspaper in Todd County sent me a text message and said, you have to pick up a copy of today's paper. And I said, okay. And she said, look at the headline. And it was three teenagers stole a combine and went for a joyride on some back country roads in Todd County. And in the story, they made sure to reference that alcohol was not involved, which, kind of makes it a little humorous if you follow what I'm saying. Make sure you cite your sources using footnotes as noted on the writing checklist, or the writing handout as it's sometimes called. And then for each of the 5 instances you selected, you should identify what category it's from. You should provide a brief synopsis, probably about 3 to 5 sentences in terms of the synopsis. And then number 3, was it positive or negative? How do you know? What impact does it have on how people view us in our state in terms of stereotypes, education, economics, etc.? This part, the number 3 part, is the one I really want you to think about for all 5 of your instances that you choose. Because believe it or not, businesses and companies that are thinking about investing money in our state, they do pay attention to how we are reported. They do pay attention to education. They do pay attention to infrastructure and a whole host of other things. And all this is greatly related and tied to our economic success or lack thereof in this state. I think you'll have some fun with this assignment. I really hope you do. Again, it should be about 2 pages, maybe a little bit more. I'm not looking for 7 or 8 pages or anything like that. There is a rubric. The rubric is very simple. Did you follow the instructions? For example, do you have 5 instances from 5 different categories? Do you have did you use footnotes? Did you use them correctly? And so on and so forth. If you follow this guide, you follow this recording, and if you have any questions, again, please, as always, just ask, and I'll be here to try to make sure that we all are guided through this process. You all have a great day and happy learning.